Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing Arsenal Football Club and their recent dropped points against Fulham away from home. Before we start, I do just want to caveat this. Fulham are the second best team in the league on expected points. So they are obviously a good opposition, a strong team, and dropping points against them was not the most embarrassing result, but it is potentially catastrophic for our title ambitions this season. The first up is football is a funny game. If Martinelli didn't stray offside, then we're looking at a different kettle of fish. We're praising Arsenal for sticking in there and getting a result against the run of play when we weren't necessarily at our best in our first half. There are a few talking points we need to get into, a few things we need to discuss regarding Mikel Arteta, but can I just say, I do think right now the title race is over. Liverpool are 6 points off at the top of the table with a game in hand and look imperious this season. They are by far the team to beat, and in a year when City have looked normal and teams have dropped off to the point where it looks like the Premier League before Pep and Klopp in terms of point tallies for the majority of teams, Liverpool have been imperious. They are by far the best team in the league at the moment and look like they're going to run away with the league. I do think that our inconsistent nature of form has come at a bad time when we can't capitalise. And if it was the Arsenal of last season, potentially we would have won the league. But this state of play that Arsenal are in at the moment, there's been a drop-off, and I do think the title is now out of our reach. But that said, there are a few talking points that we do need to get into. So, first up, it feels like the third season is just a little bit too quick, too much for Arsenal. We've run out of steam, the momentum stopped for either momentarily or for the time being, and we necessarily need a new injection from somewhere, a bit more energy to refresh that attack. I think the problem may lie with Gabriel Jesus, but also the lack of investment that we've had in attacking areas over the last few seasons, to the point where we need just a refresh in the forward line, probably a new striker, maybe a new winger, just to give us a bit more oomph and know-how and energy in going forward and attacking play. Because we look like now, if a game's not going well for our first attacking option, being Saka, Nelly and Havertz, then the options off the bench are limited. Or Trossard, sorry. Trossard's obviously. But Trossard has had a weird season. He has actually had a really bad season in terms of his impact on games, but that's an issue for another day. Looking at the game against Fulham then, it has to be said that, firstly, I think there was a Martinelli overreaction. I'll get into that in a second. But with regards to Leandro Trossard, I think taking him off when they did was a mistake from Arteta. Trossard was finally getting into the game. He was actually looking dangerous on that left-hand side. And the substitution of subbing him for Martinelli seemingly just stopped any rhythm that Arsenal had in attack. And unfortunately, where the game was sort of shifting and Trossard was getting on the ball, making shots happen, it just didn't work out. For me, also, the relationship between Trossard and Havertz is good and everything. But for me, I think Martinelli should play when Havertz plays, because Martinelli's more of a crosser of the ball, especially from that left-hand side. He will get that ball into the box, whereas Trossard likes to take on a shot a lot more than Martinelli. So that's how I feel about that. I do feel that Arteta did make a mistake going into this game. I also feel that he made a mistake in terms of Partey at right-back. I think that I'd have rather played Miles Lewis-Skelly at left-back, even Tierney, although he has just been injured, so probably Miles Lewis-Skelly, and bring Timber at right back and Partey in the midfield just to add a bit more progressive passing. So I do feel that that was a mistake, but these things happen, you live and you learn. The Nelly overreaction was a bit much though. Paul Merson said it was criminal that Martinelli was offside in the game against Fulham for the goal. But these games are played in milliseconds. Split decisions. Martinelli made the run expecting the pass. And he got the pass, granted. But through the line, it was tight. And the pace that this game is played at in the top level, his decision-making would have been like that. You can't blame one player for a poor result. You can't blame one player for the goal not standing. You've got to admit the ball could have gone out to him quicker. The pass selection could have been better. He could have done better, granted, in positional sense. But alternatively, the front line could have shifted to push that back line back a little bit. You can't blame it all on one individual just because they didn't do the run in time. And it was so close that I didn't even think it was offside in the build-up beforehand, before the VAR intervened. So I feel like it was extremely harsh to say that about Martinelli. Also, the commentator put a lot of the praise when the goal went in on Saka, saying that he comes up big for Arsenal when needed, which, yes, he finished the chance. But the ball from Martinelli was world class. So at least praise the good he did, even though it didn't count, if you're going to praise anyone. That ball was on a sixpence. Saka just had to direct it on target. So I do feel it was slightly unfair against Martinelli. The whole team as a whole didn't really create. I think what was more criminal was the Partey missed header prior to that. That was an awful header. But we weren't good in that game. So what next? We need to get a bit of a run going. We need to get players fit so that we can be more of a threat in the cup competitions, the Champions League, the Carabao Cup. I know we've got a quarter-final coming up, the FA Cup. So that Arsenal can build and hopefully get something out of the season. A big cup like an FA Cup or a Champions League will really help us going into next season because it will bring the winning mentality and hopefully that feel-good factor back around Arsenal. Obviously stick with Mikel. Don't do anything daft like that. But I do feel like the Premier League is done for now. And that's fine. Well, it's not fine, but I feel that that's okay in the context if obviously you don't get worse from here. So, for example, you can have an off year as long as next year we do well and get the energy back. The issue will be if we have an off year, then we get worse and then lose key players. We just can't affect this upwards trajectory long term being hampered by one bad season. That's when it would be less than fine. But until then, we'll wait and see. I do think that maybe the defence needs reinforcing. I know it's an area that we have spent a lot of money in recent years, but Jakub Kivior, for their goal, Fulham's goal, showed a real lack of pace, something that is needed if he's going to be coming in from Gabriel from time to time. And that makes me think maybe we could do with another option at left centre-back. But that said, if Calafiori was fit, he plays there, or if Timber played there, then maybe we're looking at a different game. So, all in all, the title I do feel is over for Arsenal. The season isn't over because you can still look at building in different ways, getting cup competitions, hopefully doing well in the cups, getting our defence back, our morale back, our fitness back. There are different ways to think positively within football. We just can't stop going, if that makes sense. Like with the Fulham drop points, we can't think, oh, the league's over, let's stop here and not get momentum, not try. Because in this small chance that Liverpool's wheels do fall off, Trent decides to move to Real Madrid, Virgil decides that his future's elsewhere. We've seen last season that they do run out of energy eventually. So if in the case that they do run out of energy, we have to keep the momentum on. 6 points is the difference at the moment. It's likely more like 9 points. But if they were to draw, for example, the next game, which is against Fulham, or lose, then that could be 7 points. And 7 points is not that much at this point in the season. So we'll wait and see. But I do feel like the league is done. But that's fine. That's fine. Obviously, you've got more to play for than the league. So let's just enjoy the Champions League. Let's not overreact about Martinelli. Let's just reevaluate the season once January has happened. And hopefully we can get a nice little forward in just to up the intensity across the front line. Because Sterling hasn't hit the heights. One thing I will say, though, is Raheem Sterling is a player who's good at unlocking deep blocks for his dribbling skill and his progression with the ball. Surely, maybe in the game against Fulham when they're playing a 5-back in their own box, you maybe could have done with bringing him on, but that's down to the manager. But yeah, obviously, Arsenal have faults at the moment. The energy's pretty low. Let's just hope they can turn it around soon. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.